Hi. Why am I here? I'm not an Insta star or a social media player or an Instagrammer. I'm an educator. I've known about Mic Drop for a long time. Rosh is an old friend, as he said, but it never occurred to me that I would ever take the stage. And then Rosh asked me if I'd be interested in doing Wonder Woman, a stage for mompreneurs, which is something that I never really considered for myself. But it got me thinking about what is a Wonder Woman, and if I was a Wonder Woman, and if I had a message, which is something that Mic Drop is all about. And I thought about my message, and I realized I do have a message, and it's time to tell everybody what it is. My name is Katy Horowitz, and I'm an educator. Not your traditional DC Marvel superpower, but nevertheless, I help people and I try and do the right thing, so I think I can claim the status. My passion for education started in my own home. I've been happily married for 17 years to my polar opposite. I'm a fiery type A, and he is a super chilled, laid-back guy. We naively thought that the combination of our two extreme personalities would create the perfect human. However, instead, we were more like oil and water, and what we got were miniature versions of ourselves. And for anybody that has lived this, you will know that there's no greater self-reflection than seeing yourself in child form. Our first son, Ralphy, is my husband's mini-me. He was the dream baby. He never cried. He was always happy just to lay back and chill and take in the world around him. It was a real blessing. That was until he started school and the system had other plans. I'll never forget his first day of kindergarten when he came running home and he said, "Mommy, I found the best place in school to daydream." And as happy as I was that he'd had a great first day and he was clearly eager to go back, it was a facepalm moment when I realized what the future held for us. Daydream he did, rarely disrupt the class, but inevitably he failed every test and never had a clue what the homework meant. The grades went by and the years, and then came the inevitable ADD diagnosis, which was something that was painfully obvious to anybody that had ever met him or his father. The school, however, took this as their get-out clause, and the pressure to medicate came thick and fast. Now, I have nothing wrong with medicating children if they need it, but in this particular situation, it really didn't fit for us. But the school didn't seem to want to take any responsibility or give any other ideas of what we could possibly do to help him. It also became apparent what trying to fit a square peg in a round hole was doing to our sweet son. My husband and I started to notice him have involuntary facial grimaces, throat clearing. He had to tap the pencil multiple times before he could start his homework. And he had to go up and down the ladder 3 times before he could get into bed at night. We were so worried that we even took him to a neurologist. Then in the summer after 4th grade, we got a phone call, an unusual phone call from his elementary school principal. And after the usual pleasantries, she said, "Mrs. Horowitz, I'm calling to tell you that unfortunately we can't have Ralphie back at school this year." Okay, this was the same woman that a few months earlier had said to me that if she was a kid, that my son Ralphie, the very same kid, would be the one that she would want to hang out with. So I couldn't understand what it was he'd possibly done. And then she said something that 4.5 years later is still very clear in my head. She said, "We just don't know how to teach him." I was flawed. As a mother, as an educator, as a human, I just couldn't understand how they could be giving up. I couldn't understand how I was going to have to tell Ralphie, who had struggled in 1st grade with a little English accent to try and fit in, that he was going to have to leave and go and start all over again. Basically, I just thought it was mean. I thought it was mean and I thought it was pathetic. I was left with no choice but to homeschool. There's not a lot of good educational opportunities in Florida. And after 6 months, I had an epiphany. He didn't tick anymore. He could just climb up the ladder and get into bed. And it occurred to me, could neurological disorders just been because he was being unsuccessful, just because of school? And then I thought, you know what, Katy, if you went to work every day and every day you failed, every day you got it wrong and you were told you got it wrong, but every day you knew you had to go back the next day, wouldn't that make you anxious? And couldn't that anxiety manifest in neurological disorders? Well, I guess it could, because to this day, we've never seen that side of him ever again. So how many people here tonight can relate to what I just said? I'm pretty sure that I'm not alone in this, and I'm sure that there's multiple people here that have heard this story about their child or a friend's child, or even were that child, because I've heard that a lot too. But I'm here to say that it doesn't have to be that way, and the story doesn't have to end the way that mine did. And I'm here to try and inspire as many educators to stand with me. One of the most frustrating parts is that I am an educator and I have a school. I have a school from children 18 months to first grade, and I've never given up on a child. I have children as challenging, if not more challenging than Ralphy, every year in every class. But that's them. That's the way they were made. And every child that is like that makes me a better educator for them, for their class, and for all the children that will come after them. One year, I got a phone call from a mother, and she had a child that wasn't doing well where he was. And truth be told, I'd heard about this child on the community grapevine. But as I do, I said, sure, bring him, we're ready. Week 1, great. Week 2, awesome. The 3rd week was excellent. I just couldn't understand how this delightful, kind, eager, smart child was the same one that I'd heard about. And then I thought, he must be medicated. So I went and I looked in his medical records, and I noticed that nothing was written down. And I thought that this could be dangerous. In case, God forbid, something happened, I would need to know if he was taking any medication. So at carpool, I gingerly approached his mother, and she'd become a friend at this point. And I said to her, you know, I noticed on X's medical forms that you didn't put down the medication that he's taking. And she kind of looked at me blankly, and I was kind of left with no choice but to come clean. And she said, well, it's funny you should mention that, because my husband and I were just discussing how come you hadn't come to us with 100 things that he'd been doing wrong. And at that moment, I realized that this was just another child that was broken because of where he was. I have arguably the happiest, most confident kindergarten and first grade. Each child is performing at grade level or above, never having had any homework, never having taken a test. We can tell how good they're doing just from their daily work, and never having been compared to any other child in the class. Some kids are grasping and the academics and soaring, and we don't hold them back by grade. And other ones need smaller learning groups, a little bit more time to grasp the concept, and they're given that courtesy. But each one is happy and confident and resilient, and most of all, loves to come to school. We also have kids that have come to our school from other schools where they weren't doing so well. And in part, this has given a stigma to the school. I know, I've heard about it. But I challenge anybody to come into the classroom and find those kids, because you won't be able to, because that part of them doesn't exist anymore. They know that they are loved and cared about unconditionally, and they each think that they're the smartest kid in the class, and they act and learn accordingly. I've also heard about schools that cherry-pick children for their program. And it made me think about the kids in my program. And their reasoning is they don't want to have kids that they can't handle. Meanwhile, I think about how many kids would not have made the grade and how much less fun my days would be without those children in it. I'll say it again, they are harder to teach. They do take more out of me, but that's what I'm there for. Every morning, I try and greet all the kids with a hug. They all know that they're loved and respected, and they're never made to fit into any shape, hole that God didn't make them. Each child came in having learned to walk at a different age. Some were 9 months, some were 19. They'd all cut teeth and learned to speak at different times. So why now should I be expecting them all to learn and progress at exactly the same rate? It doesn't make any sense. It shouldn't be how it is. The confidence and resilience that a school can either give or unfortunately take away from a child is paramount, and in my opinion, more important than any academics taught. It stays with them for the rest of their lives, and I can say this because I live with a 40-year-old who still remembers. It's too late for him, and I hope I caught Ralph in the nick of time, but I can help all the other Ralphs that I find and make sure that this doesn't happen to them. The world has changed so much in 50 years, and yet our classrooms just have not kept up. It's amazing to see so many schools bucking the trend and trying to be innovative and doing new things, but I really believe that all schools should be doing this. There's a harder-to-teach kid in every classroom, and that kid is either left feeling unsuccessful or, even worse, being made to leave. So what is a Wonder Woman? Well, I'm not Gal Gadot. I'm not an Amazonian princess, and spandex these days, not so much. But Wonder Woman was created to be a strong female character for boys and girls, and that is something that I try to be every day. I try to show them that they should never give up and everybody is worth it. I have 3 kids, one of which I homeschool, Ralph, and he's doing great, and I have high hopes for him. I have 65 children that I go above and beyond for every single day. I try to be a best friend to my supportive husband and have as many home-cooked meals as I can per week. So if that classes me as a Wonder Woman, then I'll take it. But that's not why I do it. I do it because I wouldn't know how to do it any other way.